My guest at this time is Morgan Zegers, CEO and founder of Young Americans Against Socialism. Poll after poll recently shows Americans becoming more favorable to socialism. And for young adults, socialism and capitalism are running neck and neck. According to Gallup, 51% of Millennials and Gen Z have a favorable impression of capitalism, and 49% think well of socialism. Among Gen Xers, the divide is 61-39, and among boomers and traditionalists, it's 68-32. So what do many people, especially young adults, think these terms mean? And how are young people like Morgan working to set the record straight? And Morgan, thanks so much for being with us.
Thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be on. This is an incredibly important topic for sure.
Well, you talk with college students and other young adults about this a lot, and some can't explain why they think the way they do about socialism, and we'll talk about that later. But for those that do have an answer, what do you hear most about why they think well of socialism and not so much about capitalism?
Well, you kind of hit the nail right on the head in the beginning where you mentioned all these really horrible statistics. And while that is frustrating, I think it's really optimistic that my generation has no idea what socialism really is. They say they support it. 58% support it right now. But the important thing is that if you ask them, I even had college students say that socialism was socializing, just talking peer to peer. I've had them say that it means achieving social equality, that it means less imprisonment. It means more freedom even. It's insane how ignorant they are to this issue. And so that's why I see it as an opportunity. If they knew the truth, I doubt my generation would be supportive of socialism. So that's what we're doing, is trying to enlighten them with the truth about how great capitalism is, how great entrepreneurship is, and how bad socialism would be for the future of our country.
Do you get answers that we hear from folks like Bernie Sanders saying that the rich are too rich and we need to spread the wealth around, as Barack Obama famously once said? Do you hear some of those talking points, that the system's just not fair or something? When you finally do get an answer, if you get an answer, is it similar to that or is it something else?
Oh, it is. And you know, there is a difference. I mean, there are definitely true socialist far-left supporters in my generation, but then there are a bunch that really have no idea what socialism is. The people who do have that idea that, you know, it's not fair in America and we need wealth redistribution, they truly do believe that capitalism is unfair, that they are being oppressed by the man, and instead of thinking the man is the government, they think the man is capitalism, business owners, millionaires, billionaires. And I think the rhetoric from the politicians on the far left is not only bad for the country, but it's dangerous. Because you have groups like Antifa who not only go around saying that they are resisting society and they want to change and give a revolution to America, but they are carrying around flags with the communist hammer and sickle. This is incredibly sick stuff that they say, especially when you have Bernie Sanders saying things like, oh, billionaires should not exist. And he says he wants to sue and use legal action against energy companies that are adding to the issue of climate change. What does that mean, really, to prosecute businesses for operating if they don't agree with Bernie Sanders and his leftist agenda? That's where we get into the sticky part, and that's what we need to combat. So before the far left reaches our generation with that dangerous rhetoric, we need to step in as conservatives and offer them an opportunity-filled future.
We're talking with Morgan Zegers of Young Americans Against Socialism. And so, Morgan, when you do get the chance to engage, what argument do you generally talk about? For those who remember the Cold War and the stark differences between capitalism and Soviet-style communism, there's obviously a lack of freedom, everyone making the same wage in many cases, obviously repression and people's lives being taken from them if they resist. So what generally is your strategy to counter their argument?
Well, so first of all, you have to break down the basic socialist argument. And when you think of it, first of all, the left will say, oh, no, we're not socialists, we're democratic socialists. So then you say, okay, well, with democratic socialism, Venezuela turned from the most resource-rich democracy in South America quickly with socialist economic policies, and it became a socialist dictatorship with the people starving in the streets. And as soon as you prove them wrong on that and explain how even with democracy, socialism is dangerous and it takes away freedom, they say, oh, no, we're not talking about that kind of socialism. We're talking about Nordic Europe. And so the next step of that argument and breaking down that narrative is to show that Nordic Europe is very much capitalist, very much relies on the market, and they just have high taxes. And so it's about explaining the difference between a country with big government programs and high taxes versus an actual socialist economy. And that's what Bernie Sanders is advocating for. On October 27th, even though Bernie Sanders says that he wants to be like Nordic Europe, on October 27th, Bernie Sanders said that we need to seize the means of production of the utilities industries in this country in order to fight climate change. That is socialism. That will make us like Venezuela, not like Nordic Europe. And so that, I think, will really open the eyes of people in my generation.
Morgan, just a couple of minutes left in our conversation, and I do want to get to the point that I mentioned in passing, and that's that a lot of the folks, and you mentioned this too, don't really know why they like socialism. And we live in a culture where the instinct for many when they hear somebody unable to explain their position is to mock them. You strongly believe that's the wrong approach, that those people, because they don't know why they think the way they do, are teachable, and that if you mock them, you're never going to win them over. So what results have you gotten from that countercultural approach?
And thank you for pointing that out, too. That's a really important part of Young Americans Against Socialism. We have to understand who the real enemy is. The enemy is not the members of my generation that think that socialism is a good idea. They think socialism should be implemented because they think it will help people. And the bad actors and the people we need to fight in this, our true enemies, are the far left politicians and leaders that are tricking our generation and lying to them. And so I believe that the tip of the spear really in this fight is not to make fun of millennials for hating on capitalism, even though we have the most opportunity-filled and successful and wealthy lives of any generation that's been before us. Instead, we need to show them that our ideas are the best way to solve the problems that they care about, whether that's the student loan crisis, whether that's about climate change, whether that's protecting the environment, or if it's about finding affordable health care. We need to care about the issues that they care about and show them that we have realistic, common-sense solutions. And I think that's going to be the best way to do it. We're never going to win them over if we keep making fun of them, if we keep shaming them for supporting ideas that they truly believe in.
Last 30 seconds, Morgan. How did you become passionate about this?
Oh, well, I had a communist roommate, and what was crazy was she was the nicest person I had ever met. So nice, so friendly. She really wanted to help people, and it just drove me insane that she was a communist and really thought she was going to help people and help this country. So it made me want to understand and to help people like her see the truth about these ideologies. And I want to thank you for having me on. I really appreciate it.
Absolutely. Morgan Zegers is CEO and founder of Young Americans Against Socialism. I'm Greg Corombos reporting for Radio America.